everything, so that's what I'm gonna treat you guys, if y'all are okay with that. Just a little bit about me. Like I said, my background is in law enforcement. I started out in 1992 as a patrol deputy in East Texas, went to the city of Galveston. I worked there for 25 years. I retired from there as the assistant chief of police. I left to come up here because I was ready to retire and go with hurricanes and Mardi Gras and motorcycle rallies and all the craziness of the big city that Galveston had. And I came to Hutto, and I was chief of police for about 2.5 years. And then I was promoted to assistant city manager over public works and public safety. Public works is water and sewer and roads. I also have parks. I don't know how I got parks, but I have parks as well. And so I've been over here for about 8, 9 months now. So I'm married. I have 2 boys. I have a 25-year-old son that is a policeman in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, who's home for Christmas this year. Well, he's home now. He's got to work Christmas. And then I have a 20-year-old that is studying engineering at Temple College, and he lives at home. So that's a little bit about me. So what pack are you guys? 912. 912? Okay. And what schools are represented? What school do you all go to different schools? Okay.
Curly Elementary.
Okay.
Hutto Elementary.
Okay, good deal. So, you guys want to know how the city plans for growth, because we're experiencing a lot of growth. Since I've been here, when I showed up the first day, I think our population was about 24,000 folks. Nice, small city. Man, it was pretty cool with that. But right now, our population is about 37,500 folks, somewhere near. Some people say it's 40,000 if you count the ETJ, the extended area of Hutto. And so we're about 40,000 folks. And so I found out real quickly, coming from the police world, I always thought that people were concerned about not having their stuff stolen, which is a big deal, which is a very big deal. That there's no criminal mischief going on in the neighborhoods, and there's no burglaries and no theft. And so my background being from police, the first thing that when I got here, I noticed that we were really understaffed as far as the area that we cover. And so when I got here, we had about 25 sworn officers. When I left the police department last April, we had 52 sworn officers and a civilian staff of about 8 guys, or eight people. I say guys. We took in animal control. We inherited that. Animal control was dog catchers, but they do more than catch dogs. They catch coyotes, and they do all kinds of other things. They reunite people with their lost pets and stuff like that. So when I left there, I almost doubled the size of that department and created a whole bunch of different divisions inside of the police department to help combat the crime. One of the things that I did was, one of the first things I did when I got here was we started a sex offender registration program. There wasn't one here, never had been. And so we really attacked that. What we've done is we got city council. That's all these chairs right here. All these people that sit from here over are all elected officials, and there's a election coming up in May, and so they're all elected. They're folks just like your mom and dad who decide that they want to run and be part of the city government, and they kind of approve what we do through what they call an ordinance, which ordinance is kind of basically like a law, and they also approve our money for our budgets, so we can grow the different departments and things like that. So they approved it, and so we had about 30 registered sex offenders. I think we have 12 right now. So we have a very, very good staff over there that monitors that and takes care of that. And another thing that I saw that we didn't have a narcotics unit. Someone to go out and enforce the drug laws. And so we started our narcotics unit. They're very active, even though we're a smaller town. Typically, people that deal illegal drugs, they like smaller towns because they kind of can blend in. Some of the bigger cases that were actually not in Houston, but in suburbs of Houston. They do their business in a big city like Houston or Austin, and they live here. And so we've kind of gone out and done some things like that. With that growth, we had to make sure that we have enough police to respond to accidents and things like that. So we took care of that part. Then I came over to the city side where I have water. Water is very important. I didn't realize how important water is, because when you go home after a day of being at school and you're ready to take a shower to go to bed, you want to make sure you have water. Water is very, very, very important. So what we do is our water wells, we have a few water wells that are here in Hutto, but most of our water wells are about 26 miles from here, 26 miles to the east. And there they have a huge aquifer. And we have 8 wells right now, water wells. And when I say wells, it's not like what you think of like a little bitty small water pump that you would see like out at a farm or something. These are huge. These are probably 60, 70 horsepower electric motors. They're about this big around. They weigh about 3,900 pounds to 4,000 pounds, and they run. And the pipes that go down into the ground are anywhere from 12 to 18 inches deep, wide, about this big around. Really big pipes. They go down into the ground, and those big electrical motors pump it up. And then we have water lines that go all the way from, it's up in Shallow, way out east, about 26 miles from there. And it pumps it through great big pipes, and the big pipes that bring that water in are probably 24 inches around. So there's 26 miles of pipe that's just big around that brings all of our water in. And then from there, we distribute it to the water towers that go to different parts of town. There's one over there by the high school, there's one over here across Stern, there's one over here on, oh, my mind went blank. It's just right over here in the part of Old Town. I can't think of the name of that street to save my life right now. Anybody know the name of that street?
I don't know the name of the street, but what's the purpose of a water tower? Why would you need that?
Okay, so what we do is we pump all this water in those water towers, and it's stored there during the day. So when you go home and turn your shower on, the water in the water tower comes back out another pipe that feeds to your house, that goes into like your neighborhood. We have 16 to 18 inch big pipelines that feed like each of the subdivisions where you guys live at. And then from there, there are smaller pipes that go to your house, probably 2.5 inches. go into your house, so when you turn the water on, it takes that water from that water tower, and that's how you can take a shower or wash dishes or.
So you're using gravity to get water to the homes versus pumping it into each home.
Right.
Because that's easier.
Yeah. So what we do is we store water here in Hutto. So our peak times are 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock in the afternoon is our biggest time. Does anybody have an idea why 7 o'clock would be? Go ahead.
Because 7 o'clock is around dinner time, so you have cups of water.
You have that. A lot of people are taking showers, right? And so that's our peak time. Does anybody want to take a guess when we use the most water? What month it would be?
A month?
Yeah, in a month.
July?
July is a big one. The biggest month that we use water is the month of August, because it's hot. And everybody's watering their yards and sprinkling and doing things like that. So last summer we used, as a city, we used 2.8 million gallons of water. That was our peak use during the month of August, and August was our biggest month that we used water, but the peak day was 2.8 million gallons of water. So almost 3 million gallons of water is a lot of water. And so we have those 8 wells that run, and then we have 6 other wells that we use, which is located up at the heart of Texas, which is kind of around the Copeland area. Out there, we have water wells from there. And so we have a whole bunch of water wells. So water is really, really important. Everybody needs water. I mean, it really is. Without water, you cannot live. Think about all the things that you use water for: cooking, cleaning, watering your lawn, washing your car. I mean, all that. So it's really important that we have. So I have a crew of about 15 guys that work just in the water department, and what they do is they go out every day and they make repairs to the system. It could be something major as a major water, or one of the big pipes that break. They go out and fix that. It could also be just as simple as going out and flushing fire hydrants. We flush all the fire hydrants at least once a month. We have a crew that goes out and does it. That means they turn it on, they let it spray for about 2 minutes, and they cut it back off. That's to make sure that if there's a fire, the fire department, we know the fire hydrant's working, there's good pressure and all that. And so they do that. Like I said, once a month they go in, and it's on a month rotation that they hit all the fire hydrants in town. So they have a computer screen, like a laptop. Basically, it's just a laptop. And they go in there and they check off each one that it does, and at the end of the month, they should make, all of them are flushed out. And so, but those guys go out, like new homes that come in, our guys go out, and so when the home builder gets ready to tie into the water, our guys will actually go out to the main pipe that services that street in that neighborhood, and they call it making a connection. And what they'll do is they'll hook up the pipe that goes to your house to the main water line that services that neighborhood. So that's why when you turn the water on, they're all good to go. We use contract companies, so when we turn that water off, you would think that water on to a new house or to a new business, that you would actually have to turn the water off for the whole city, so they could hook it in, and they don't do that. They call what they call a hot tap. There's a special machine that they have. It goes on the outside of the big pipe, straps over, and they've got a machine, and they bolt it down, and it seals that around that pipe. They have a big drill, and so you see that blue pipe that's laying on the side of the road for water lines. That pipe is probably at least an inch thick. You look at it and say, oh, it's plastic pipe. Well, it's probably about 1.5 inches thick. And so this machine drills a hole through it, and it cuts out a big plug, and the plug comes back out because the water's pushing it out. And so they turn the valve off, and they take their little machine off, and then this plastic piece of the pipe falls out, and then they've got where they can go ahead and hook it up to the water to your house or to a business. And so we never turn the water off. I think there's only been one time since I've been here when I was the chief of police. For whatever reason, we had a water main break because we had some flooding. And the water never went out. We never did water rationing, but we were able to keep the water flowing. So another thing that the guys have to do, they have to go out and they have to check the quality of the water, and they do that 5 times a day, every day. They go out and they check it. It's called Bactine, to make sure there's no bacteria in the water, and all that's reported to the state. There's a department that works for the state. It's called the Texas Environment Quality, TECQ. And what they do is they make sure that the water that you drink is the same water, that doesn't have any bacteria or any bugs or anything like that in it. There's a standard that they have, and they make sure that all of our drinking water meets up to that. And so they have to do that 5 times a day, and they have to turn all their reports in at the end of the month to make sure that our water is good quality drinking water and it's clear.
What kind of education does that require?
So to be a water technician, our guys that work in the water department, there is on-the-job training that they have to do. They have to take tests through the state to get licensed to work in the water department. Everything is regulated by a state board, and so those guys go to training that we bring inside. We'll have instructors come in and show them how to go out and check for the water quality, or how to go out and there's some basic plumbing, pipe fitting type work that goes into this. So all that's regulated by the state. They have to take a test. They have to score at least a 70% on it, and they get a license. It's a little piece of paper that they're qualified to be a water technician. And so Anybody wanna guess what the second biggest problem is for a city that grows? Behind the water? No. Sewer. Because if you got that water, you gotta get rid of it some way. And so we have 2 water treatment plants here in Hutto. And basically it takes all the water that you use after it's been dumped down the sink or flushed down the toilet. And we have 2 plants that we have. And those guys, they have to go to a lot of schooling to learn how to operate those plants. So it's really important that all the waste material that's in there, it's settled out. And so when they discharge water into the creeks, it has to be almost as clean as it was before it came in. So we have 2 water treatment plants. We have one that's over here in Old Town, and then we have a real big one that's on 120 acres out on 1660, way out on the southeast side of town. And both of those plants run 24 hours, 7 days a week. So we have folks, we have contractors that run the water treatment plant, and those guys work 24 hours, 7 days a week. They're there. There's somebody at that plant monitoring what's going on. And basically, all the waste goes into these big tanks, and it's treated with bacteria, the good kind of bacteria, and it's filtered. And so those guys have to change the filters all the time and make sure that the filters are clean. And then it's discharged into Brushy Creek, cleaner than what it was. Most of that water that we have, some companies buy it from us, the discharge water. They use it to for irrigation, for like plants, trees. Some of the farmers buy it and use it. Some of the people use it to spray their, if they have a big company, they'll use that water to water their lawns and stuff like that. And that's how clear the water is when it comes back out of the water treatment plants. The good thing that we have is the plant that's out on the southeast side of town. We have 120 acres basically. The type of plant that we have, as the population grows, as our city grows, all we have to do is build these big storage tanks. They're open tanks and they've got skimmers on it that go through there and stir up the bacteria and all that. And so it's very compartmentalized. So I think right now we have 12 tanks. We can put up to 48 tanks in one area before we have to bring any other infrastructure in, another plant part of it to mix it. Like I said, it's 120 acres. You probably could treat waste and sewage for a city of 150, 160,000 eventually before you have to do anything. So, I mean, if you figure Hutto keeps growing at 13% a year like it has been, the next 50 years, we've got the capacity, we have the ability to go ahead and treat our wastewater and our sewage. So, another thing that we have is, to get back on that water, the water wells that we own in the 2 locations, we have enough water in Hutto, and we have the ability to get that water and get it here for the next 100 years. We have a lot of very smart engineers that specialize in water and wastewater, and they tell us all the time that, hey, you got enough water to supply Hutto for water for the next 100 years. He goes, probably a community of 500,000 folks, we have the capacity to do that.
Wow.
I don't know if I'll ever see that in my lifetime. You guys might see Hutto at 500,000 people. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, but we have enough water. Do you guys remember when Austin ran out of water a few years ago? Do y'all remember that with the floods and all that? So Austin gets all their water from 2 big lakes, 2 big reservoirs. And so we had a lot of flooding, and they take that water that's in Lake LBJ in Travis. Thank you, Travis. And it had a lot of dirt and sediment in it, and all their filters got clogged up. And so they couldn't supply water. They don't have any other water source. And so we were actually selling them water from Hutto. It went up, big pipe, up to Austin, and we were selling them about 500,000 gallons a day of water. Because their city council wanted the water to come from the reservoirs instead of having backup wells. Because of the Edwards Aquifer is what I was told. I was like, doesn't make a lot of sense, but okay, I can get that. But they were telling me that's the reason why. There's too many folks sucking out of Edwards Aquifer. So Austin decided to get theirs from the lakes and the reservoirs. I was like, okay, makes sense. So we actually were able to supply those guys water, about 500,000 gallons a day. We did that for about 2 weeks till they got their filters in and they were able to filter out water. So I have an engineering department. In my engineering department, they do a lot of this stuff with water and wastewater. You know, we're putting lines in and all that, where the sewer lines are gonna go, where the water is gonna be brought to your house. And so they do that all the time. They also do streets, all the streets in the city is responsible. Even a lot of them are built, like when a new subdivision comes in, the developer, they pay for all that, and then we take the streets over, and so they make sure that the streets are built up to our code, what our code is. They make sure that they're wide enough, they have ample room for parking and sidewalks and things like that, then we take them over. But new roads and stuff, to help people get around town, the engineering department also works on that as well, to help get traffic in and out. And so they've got a couple big projects. There's gonna be an overpass over the railroad tracks. If anybody has bad luck like I do, when I go to the railroad track, I always catch a train.
Every time.
Every single time.
Where's that gonna be put up at?
It's gonna be down at County Road 132. It'll go over there and it will tie in with Carl Stern, and then the county's new loop that they're bringing in. I'm trying to think what they call that. Can't remember. County's got a new road project they're doing. The E1 is what they're calling it. You'll be able to actually come out at 130. Eventually, if you take 132 over, you'll come out on what they're calling the E1 corridor road. You'll be able to hit that, and hit 130 from there, and then go into Austin. And so,
What about issues like the fire department? Because the fire department's on the south side and we got the train, so.
we have a fire department out on 1660 over by Farley. Yeah,
Oh,
there's a new fire station over there.
oh, I didn't know that, okay.
Yeah. We work with the fire department. They're a different entity of us. They're through the county, the emergency service district. But they sit down and they meet with us and they talk to us, and we give them input of where growth is gonna happen and where, fire departments need to be built to respond quicker to town. I think they've got one that they're gonna do on the north side of 1660 in Chandler, somewhere in that area. And then another one going in at 132. They're gonna go, the police department's gonna be called the Justice Center. It's gonna be a fire department, a police department, and municipal court will be held there. And so we're already, we are in the design of the building right now, and we're meeting with architects, which you guys don't wanna ever do that because it really, it takes a long while for to design a building. Like, they designed this building, it took almost a year for them to come up with a design. And, but there'll be another fire, there should be 2 more stations opening up.
So what do you think's a bigger deal? I mean, everybody knows about the train. You think it's harder to have a train going through the middle of the city or building around the train?
So,
I'm sure there's other major cities that have trains going right through the
oh
middle.
yeah, so the hardest part, Houston was actually built around the train line that went through Houston back in the 1800s. I'm a history buff, so living on Galveston Island, it was real fascinating. I found out all kinds of history because of the 1900 storm and all that stuff. So anyway, Houston was a town, and so was Galveston. That the train track actually separated Galveston at one time. And so what they did was they built overpasses, or we call it a viaduct over. And so it can be done when you deal with the train running through your town like our train does. And Round Rock is another example. It splits Round Rock right down the middle, pretty much. you have to come up with engineering solutions to come over that. So one of the things that we've done is like the 132 overpass. Dare I say that I actually see an overpass in the plans. I doubt if I'm working here when it finally comes to fruition, but it has been discussed over here at 119 Carl Stern or Ed Schmidt to go over that intersection. So as the town grows, you have to spend money on your roads to get folks in and out of town. So actually I see that Hutto in 20 years will probably have 2 or possibly 3 overpasses in town, or viaducts, whatever you want to call them. So the train won't be such a problem. Because if you're like me, literally every time I go to that intersection, I catch the train without fail. Without fail. When we were at Old City Hall, I could not go out to lunch without catching the train, at least on the way out or the way in, every single day. And it was so much, people didn't want to go to lunch with me because they didn't want to wait for the train. So there are engineering things that we have to do on our side to take like the train, because when the train comes, it basically cuts the town in half. And so you can't get police on one side, you can't get fire on one side, unless they go all the way up to 130 and go around. And so that's one of the things that we look at, is trying to make it more easy access and to handle the traffic that's coming. You know, we've got some road projects. I don't know how many people live on the north side of town at Limmer and 1660 over in there. Well, the good news is that road's gonna be widened. I don't know if y'all have seen, they're moving some telephone poles, they're moving some lights, they're doing some markings and all that. That's the good news. Bad news is they're starting construction on it, which is gonna be a double-edged sword, because I live there, I live on the north side too. And so I know the battle at 1660 at 7 o'clock in the morning, I know all too well. But when it's done, there'll be a turn lane left, or a turn lane right, a straight, and a turn lane left. And it's gonna be wide enough for it not to back up, so if you're going straight, you can go straight. 90% of the cars in the morning, if you're coming into town, they're all making rights, so they'll be able to just to make a right, not slow down. So they're starting that road project. But that's one of the places, when you guys start driving, you're gonna find that you hate traffic. A lot, a whole lot. And so you guys, hopefully, by then, all this will be done. It should be done. Kinda hopes it's done. I mean, if not, then we're not getting things done right. So we look at traffic flow patterns. We actually send some of our engineers out to intersections, usually our junior engineers, and they sit there and they count cars. They got a little clicker and they count cars. So when you hear people talk in town, well, we did a traffic study, typically that means either they're throwing a piece of electronic equipment where cars run over it and it counts cars, or there's an engineer that's went to college for 5 years. He's sitting there with a hand clicker, and what they do is they count cars, you know, for like 30 minutes. And you know, okay, I got 146 cars. He doubles that and he figures out what the traffic count is. For that, that's how they do engineering study. I thought it was a great mystery, and I found out, I was like, okay, well that makes sense. But we also work, our engineers also work with the police department, the traffic safety unit, the guys that work accidents and they enforce the speed laws, they work with them. And so we pull information from the intersections of where accidents happen. And so from there we can go to, like if it's we need to put up a traffic signal or a stop sign, it helps us justify. 119 was a bad one until they put the lights up. And I wanna say County Road 110 for some other reason.
Yes.
We're gonna have to put a light there.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time,
It's
there's always
bad
an
when
accident
they're
there.
Oh, yeah.
So all the departments in the city work together one way or another.
So is that off 110 and Limmer Loop? Is that Round Rock or Hutto?
Depends on what side you're on.
It depends
I
on
guess,
what,
yeah.
thank you very much. That side,
Round Rock.
Round Rock.
Yep.
This side, Hutto. But the
Okay.
county, and so that's a tech stop project.
Okay.
And
Okay.
you know, Sunday mornings, we go to church over there. I come up to Limmer and it's like, all right, wanna roll the dice, see if I can
Mhm.
cross the intersection again.
It's scary going through there, going to work in there. I almost got in a collision.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Because the cars get so impatient,
oh, yeah.
they just get crazy.
Yeah, and so that's gonna have to be done. That's one of the intersections that's being studied. Just,
Yeah.
you know, your parents know that something's coming. Don't know when. And so we have to work with the state agencies a lot, on a lot of different things. We work with the railroad, like getting the overpass done. We had to have the railroad company come in and sign off on it and make sure that they'll be able to get wide loads, and, you know, the overpass has to be at least 24 foot tall and all this other stuff. And so, you know, that's what, you know, you think, it takes a while because you have to, there's a lot of different meetings. They call them shareholder meetings. And so everybody that represents the railroad company is there, and everybody represents the cities there, then TxDOT, the Texas Department of Transportation there and there. And so everybody has to sign off on all this stuff, and so it kind of slows stuff down. So,
How are we doing on time? I was told y'all had a meeting tonight by HR person, 6 o'clock.
6:30,
Six-
6:18.
Oh, she told me so,
So,
okay.
do you guys have any questions on water?
Real quick, could we run down how the government is set up? We know we can see the signs, the mayor
Sure.
and all that. How's that work real quick?
Okay, so, this is, I'm blank, not a strong mayor. A council, mayor form of government, thank you. And so, like I was telling you guys, all these people with their, and there's the mayor right there, Mayor Doug Dahl. That's the mayor.
How's it
of
going?
Hutto. And so, normal citizens, they decided they want to be involved. Like, you know, he decided that he wanted to run for mayor. So he got elected. We have elections in May,
Yes,
every 3 years?
every year,
Every year.
you're elected for 3 years. There's a mayor and 6 council members. And we kind of set the policies, kind of approve budgets, approve hiring the city manager, any of the building, you know, a lot of the buildings and stuff like that, they go through, a lot of the subdivisions you see that come through, we approve, those come through for our approval, set policies and kind of procedures and kind of set the direction for the city of where we're going and what type of things we want to get done.
So, he was elected just in this past May.
Yeah, one of my second terms.
He's on a second term. And so the council members, they're the same. The mayor is the leader of the city council. And then, the city manager runs the day-to-day stuff. The assistant city manager, my job, I deal with all the stuff that the city manager doesn't want to deal with, pretty much, all the time. So that's kind of what I do. Did they want to go on a tour of the building and see the building?
Yes, please. Oh,
That's
Okay.
if we've got time. It's
We got time. They'll be in here. We can go upstairs, and I can show you where my engineers work at. I can show you where our parks guys work at. You know, like as the city grows, we have to have parks for people to go and hang out. So all that's planned out. Most of our developers, we make them put a park in a neighborhood. We're getting a little more tough on them. You know, a park is just not one piece of playground apparatus. We want some basketball courts, we want some other stuff. And we want all the parks to eventually tie in together with streets or trails. And so you can ride your bike from your park in your neighborhood to your friend's neighborhood park, and y'all can meet there and hang out. So we'll go on a tour of the building.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I had lunch with my dad today, and we were talking about the telephone poles.
Uh-huh.
So I live right off 110. When they widened that, they built new telephone poles, and then they ran the old wires on the new ones. Why didn't they bury those?
I do not know. I don't have an answer for you.
I
Bury
know
the
it's more costly to bury them.
I can tell.
So I'm like, I built houses up in Georgetown. I'm like, man, we don't have any telephone poles.
Right.
But you look at old houses, there's actually a line that runs to the house
So,
from those wires
I
back
can
in
tell
the
you,
day.
like this over here, Old Town, we were looking at burying all the electrical services in.
So it's just probably a budgetary.
So to take all the, old, light poles and all that stuff out, anybody wanna take a guess how much it would be just for the Old Town
Like
area?
10 million bucks.
Home Street.
80 million. So
wow.
that's what I said. I was like,
Build a lot of.
Oh my
10 million was
So-
mine, let me guess something really high number.
Yeah, 80 million to do all of Old Town because they go in, they take all the poles out and then they bury the lines. Well, then they gotta go in and they gotta redo all the feeds and all the connections to each individual home.
Yeah,
And some of those homes were built
Yeah.
I was just
quite
curious, I
a
mean, I just was
few
talking about
years
it
ago.
amongst the days.
And so, just to do the Old Town part, we looked at that. So what we're doing, I don't know if y'all seen the Live Oak reconstruction. It's gonna be parking on either side, big wide street, sidewalks on either side. What did we decided on concrete poles, did we not?
I think we are gonna make them a little nicer, light poles.
They're gonna be nicer concrete poles.
and
The
go
power
around.
lines are actually gonna go up above the canopy of the tree. Down below the tree canopy, there will be the street light. And so that will break up and get some of those ugly wires up. But yeah, they told us $80 million. I about had a stroke. I was like, wait a minute, we're only doing 6 streets. And we're like, well, and then I was like, ooh,
And once you
okay,
start running,
wow.
they'll be all the streets that way, so.
Yeah, and so
Multiple
we'd have to
layout.
do them all.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna go with, some lighting, street lighting, kinda like what we got already downtown. It's you know, it's fascinating to see, how the codes have changed over the years, especially. We're putting in all new water lines, we're putting an 8-inch main feed through there, which help better water flow for fire department and also for the residents. Sewer line, some of the gas lines that is being replaced because of the street widening, are, the old, metal type, you know, when they get
Aluminum.
corrosion on them and start rusting out. It's really, they had a gas leak over by Fred's Park a few months ago. And, it was one of these old pipes that had corroded. Hey, Scott, that's a council member, that is Scott Rose. If you wanna ask, Councilman Rose why he ran to be a council person, he'll tell you.
He's up for election this year.
He's up for election this year. The Boy Scout troops, my friend. He's also a fireman. See that? And do y'all know why he's a fireman? Nope.
Okay. To save lives.
He had to put out fire to save lives because he didn't score high enough to be a policeman on the civil service test.
It's funny because he stole that joke from me.
I did. That was his joke. That was his joke. He took a pot shot at me at a council meeting one night. And I was like, okay, I'll get him back, so.
Well, rivalry between your police and fire.
There's policemen and firemen, we really love each other, but we like giving each other a hard time. Do y'all have brothers and sisters?
Yes.
Okay, you love your brother, sister? Yeah, okay, I get it. You have to. So let's go take a tour of the building. Have y'all been to the library?
No.
Yeah.